of the Bhagavad Gita, and very interesting and very practical, because the topic is the divisions of faith based on the three modes of material nature. So we're going to see everything connected with our daily lives. Yeah. Next slide. Okay, now chapter 16, what we saw yesterday was the difference between the divine and the demoniac, right? Faithful followers of the Vedas are called divine. And those who disregard the Vedas as asuras. So whether they have a tail and two horns or not, but in whatever form they are, if they disregard the Vedas and they have no faith in them, then they are asuras. So that was what we saw. Next slide. Now, chapter 17, what we see, speaks of those who follow the faith, something not mentioned in the Vedas. So those who don't follow anything, they don't have faith in the scriptures, and neither they follow anything. And they are asuras, they do whimsically. But here we have another category who do not follow what is in the Shastras, but they have full faith in something other than what's mentioned in the Vedas. So that is what here we are talking about, things which are under the control of the three modes, not pure devotional service and not demonic, but so we're going to see that. What are the categories of that? Okay, next slide. So verses 1 to 10, Krishna describes how the modes of material nature determine a person's faith, worship, and eating. Okay, yes, next slide. So Arjuna's doubt is, if one with faith follows some rules which are not mentioned in the scriptural injunctions, what is his position? Are those who create some sort of God by selecting a human being and placing their faith in him, worshipping in goodness, passion, or ignorance? Do such persons attain the perfectional stage of life? Is it possible for them to be situated in real knowledge? Can those not following scriptural injunctions but have faith in something and worship gods and demigods and men attain success in their effort? So this is a very pertinent question, isn't it? We see so many different kinds of faiths in today's world, all following so many. I mean, there are so many men who are treated as avatars, and then we know, all that different, and so many people claiming that whoever they're worshipping is the supreme. So he wants to know, other than what is given in the Vedas, if they are following something, what is the whether they'll be successful and whether they will get the ultimate knowledge. Yes. Next slide. So Krishna, in the second this thing verse, he says, the Supreme Personality of Godhead said, according to the modes of nature acquired by the embodied soul, one's faith can be of three kinds: in goodness, in passion, or in ignorance. Now hear about this. So how a person, and then the third verse, he says, O son of Bharata, according to one's existence under the various modes of nature, one evolves a particular kind of faith. The living being is said to be of a particular faith according to the modes he has acquired. So those who don't follow the Vedic Shastras are following their own thing according to the three modes. According to their previous activities in the mode of goodness, passion, or ignorance, they acquire a nature of a particular quality, right? So we're carrying forward from our previous life. And then strong faith in anything is born of goodness. So some people, whoever it may be, they have created somebody or some human being also, but if they have a strong faith in that person, that is in the mode of goodness, but is subject to contamination from the other modes, because material mode can never be completely pure. So even though that is essentially, I mean, if someone has a great faith in something, then it is in the mode of goodness, but there is also passion and ignorance mixed with it. Pure goodness is transcendental. One understands the real nature of the Supreme Personality of Godhead and worship Him. So worship of Krishna, worship of Vishnu, all the Vishnu Tattvas, and they are all in the transcendental platform. Blind faith in a particular mode cannot help a person become elevated to perfection. He has to, okay, if they are worshipping someone, then maybe that can help him to control his senses, become a little more disciplined, and so on. But unless he comes to this platform of the actual Vedic understanding, they cannot get perfection. One has to be cleansed of the material contamination of the modes that he has acquired, because the modes are like, opaque. You cannot see ourselves. Neither we can understand I'm an Atma, neither we can understand Krishna. So that has to be cleansed, and it has to become, mind has to become very transparent. Contaminated modes extend to the heart and determine his faith. So even our heart, where we repose our faith, is also contaminated by the modes. Hence, we have different kinds of worship. This is the reason. See, people are very confused. Why in Hinduism we have so many multifarious types of worship? Why can't we have just one God? We had a question like that. Now you see how much Krishna is allowing according to our desires, according to the natures that we have acquired, and so on, so that people are comfortable, and they, nobody is forced. Just through force, if you're just beaten and said either you do this or we will excommunicate you or threaten you, or you bribe them and say I'll give you money so you worship, all this is really a farce. And ultimately, what are we trying to achieve? Through prayer, through faith, it is for elevation, and so it has to come genuinely from the heart. Okay, next. So there are different types of religion due to different types of faith based on 3 different modes of material nature. So you have so many different, there is the Zoroastrianism, Christianity, Hinduism, Islam, and what is that? Buddhism. All this according to the modes. Different religions are based on different modes. True religion is in pure goodness, and it is transcendental. 17.2 and 3. Okay. So this is there in the, according to, okay, next. So now we see, just to understand, this is in the same family, you have 3 brothers in 3 modes. You have Vibhishana, who is very much, he also did tapasya. All the 3 brothers, they all did severe tapasya to Brahmadev. And when Brahma came, all of them asked whatever their desires were, and so Vibhishana asked only for devotion to the Lord. So he was in the mode of goodness. And then you have Ravana, very passionate. He wanted to be the greatest and control this whole universe. So, and then you have Kumbhakarna, though actually he wanted to ask for, yes, he worshipped Shiva, but first, before he started worshipping Shiva, he first did tapasya to Brahma. And what happened was, he wanted immortality. And Brahma said, I cannot give you immortality. Nobody in the material body can be immortal. I myself am not immortal. So then this one, Ravana was very upset, because, he did tapasya and he didn't get what he wanted. So that is when he turned his this thing to Shiva. And so in the beginning, when he did, all three of them together did. And then Kumbhakarna, he asked Shiva, Brahma, that I actually wanted to ask Indrasan. He wanted to become the king of this thing, but he is not qualified. So somehow, I think Saraswati Devi sat in his tongue. And he said, instead of saying Indrasan, he said Nidrasan. That means, Nidra, sleep. So Brahmadeva said Tatastu. So that is why he was sleeping all the time. Only once in 6 months he'll get up, have a big feast, and everything again go back to sleep. So he got Nidrasan, mode of ignorance, Tamoguna. So in the same family, all three of them. So we are a sum total of various choices we make. They all made their independent choices. Nobody told them, they did according to whatever they wanted. Okay, next. So men in the mode of goodness worship the devatas. So here it says, men in mode of goodness worship the demigods. Those in the mode of passion worship the demons, and mode of ignorance worship ghosts and spirits. Because this worship of the devatas is actually prescribed also. It is not completely against the Shastras, and then they're all actual agents of the Supreme Lord, who are, and the Lord has deputed them to be, and all these things. So those in the mode of goodness are, and it's always good to, take shelter of someone more. It is actually you are acknowledging their superiority, and you're depending on higher forces. So that is in the mode of goodness. Yes, next. So you have all these devatas there blessing him. Okay. Then worship the demons or powerful men. So that is in the mode of passion, because you don't have faith in devatas and all that. You are whoever you see with your eyes. See, why is it in the mode of goodness? Because to worship the devatas, you should have some faith in the soul and all that. Then only you know that what you don't see with your eyes, but they're all there. It's given in the Shastras, and also you develop faith in your heart. Faith is in the mode of goodness. But here, this is simply, what you see externally in front of your eyes. Whoever is powerful, then you just worship. Srila Prabhupada writes in the purport that, during this Second World War, one man in India, he made a lot of money due to, during the war, everything he was selling in black and making a lot of money. So he started worshipping Hitler, because of Hitler only he made money. So there are such crazy people. Yes, they worship the demons or powerful men. Sometimes someone in great position and all that, and because of them they get a job and all. They're so obsequious and they start worshipping them. And they actually make temples out of film stars and all this. This is all demoniac. And a mode of ignorance is worshipping ghosts and spirits. Sometimes villagers, they go to the forest, and they find that some tree is possessed, some spirit is living there. Then they make offerings and please that spirit, and try to get some favors in order to either for themselves, and also mainly to do black magic and harm others. That is the mode of ignorance way. So, okay, next. But all these people can be purified by association with transcendental persons. See on the left, how Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and all his followers. By definition, there can be only one supreme. Don't get shortchanged. Don't settle for less than you deserve. So until we meet this proper pure devotee who is following everything according to the Shastras, who's in the parampara, and who's elevating us to the truth and so on, which is based on not some speculation of their own. It's not just created, but it is been eternally there. It is coming right from Krishna himself. That kind of thing, unless you meet transcendental persons. So then anyone can be purified, even others who are they have a kind of a misunderstanding. But if we come, then we can, because you hear the truth always touches the heart, whoever it may be, because the soul is eternal. The soul can recognize the truth only because of the covering we get by the modes of the material nature. But a pure devotee can, through knowledge and through his sincerity and purity, touch the hearts of people so that they can be elevated. Okay, next. So, demoniac worship. So we saw the first mode of goodness worship is worshipping the Devatas. Demoniac worship is severe austerities and penances not mentioned in the Shastras. You see how Hiranyakashipu was worshipping? He's standing on his toes and raised arms. He's standing on his stones forever. So many years he stood like this. Severe austerities, and fire started coming out of his head, and the whole universe became heated up. That's the kind of severe austerities. I mean, of course, not everyone can do like that, but people torture their bodies and do penances which are not mentioned in the Shastras. Then, performing out of pride and egoism. We know, just to get some powers and, just to show off. Because they are motivated by their ego. I must be the greatest, or I should become rich, and whatever. They do some, this thing. Impelled by lust and attachment, foolish, and torture both their bodies and the super soul. Because the Paramatma is inside the body, and the Paramatma, you can imagine how he'll feel. Why is this body being tortured like this against this thing? So that is why what is mentioned in the Shastras are not very severe and too much, giving pain and all that. It is joyfully performed. Whatever is, that is the method. We should not get, misled into thinking that more severe austerities you do, that means you'll please the Lord better. Austerity is not what the Lord is looking for. What does he gain if we torture our bodies? He is looking for love. He is looking for wisdom in us, acting according to what he wants us to do. Developing, develop our mode of goodness, do good to others, develop our service attitude. This is what we want. He wants, not some simply torturing your body and, and asking for material things which are going to put you in deeper bondage. Okay. Yes. Next. Then foods dear to goodness. Sacrifices, austerities, and charity according to the three modes. So you can see on the left all the vegetables kingdom, fruits, vegetables, and milk products are the ones in the mode of goodness. Increase duration of life, purify one's existence, give strength, health, happiness, and satisfaction. Are juicy, fatty, wholesome, and pleasing to the heart. And to the heart means also the mind. You feel happy. It doesn't create pain and unhappiness eating all this. Example, milk products, sugar, sweet is also in the mode of goodness. Rice, wheat. I mean, I put sugar. I'm sorry, it is jaggery. Make it as jaggery because healthy. We don't want to eat white sugar. Rice, wheat, dal, fruits, and vegetables. All this are in the mode of goodness. So you see, it's healthy, and it increases, gives us strength, health, happiness, satisfaction. And then all these things are juicy, fatty, wholesome, and pleasing to the heart. So maybe we put on weight because of that, but we can eat it. And restriction, this is in the mode of goodness. So we shouldn't also torture the body by saying, I will not eat anything. I will just live on, half my, whatever. You just eat one kind of food, which is not at all fatty. People avoid ghee and all that nowadays, right? Or milk products. No, that is very fattening. Or some vague thing about how milk is also now contaminated. So better I become a vegan and I won't drink milk. So many such theories are coming up. But you can see that actually milk and milk products are in the mode of goodness. And not only that, they increase our brain power, and especially for understanding spiritual knowledge and self-realization, milk is very, very good. And we know that ghee is also very much in the mode of goodness, not only for consumption internally, it's also used for yajnas and all that. And all milk products, what to speak of just milk and milk products, even the cow's urine and cow dung are considered pure. And we use all that for even bathing the Supreme Lord. Panchagavya, for Abhishek also we use. Can you imagine how pure it is? And saying that I won't have milk means it's really, it's not good at all. So we must, maybe you can burn the fat. I mean, ghee is very good. Ghee is actually not very fattening. If you have excessive amounts, maybe, but little bit of, and we need some fat in the body also. We need animal fat, and not only for the joints and all that, for it to function, we need some fat in the body. So if you just go on a diet and all that and think I'm very skeleton, like very skinny, and this is beauty and all kinds of things, because we are not doing enough physical work nowadays. Everyone is just sitting in front of the computer or desk job, and so, and our cooking also has become very simplified. So most of them things you don't need to really you have varieties of masalas and other spices, condiments, everything is just ready-made available from the shop, so you don't have to strain yourself too much. And then you have the mixie and things. So people are not exercising. So because of that, they want to avoid eating all the good things. See, what to do? Mode of goodness are all juicy, fatty, wholesome. So there's no point in avoiding, and people avoid all these things, right? Whatever is mentioned here, we avoid all that, and fruits maybe, and some vegetables, and people eat like, no, it should not be lopsided. We should have a proper diet which is given in our Vedic system, and that will make sure that we have a good health throughout our life. Do some physical work so that all this gets absorbed in the body. Moderate eating is required. No unnecessarily, going on big crash diets and all that. Very bad, because we don't know how we are harming the body. All the necessity ingredients, which vitamins and minerals, you are denying it. Then after that, so many problems come up. And we feel weak, and old age also will set in fast. You lose your hair, become so many things. Okay, yes, next. Foods dear to passion, too bitter, too sour, too salty, too pungent, too dry and burning, cause distress, misery, and disease. While you're eating also, some people enjoy it. But actually, what is happening is, when you eat a lot of spicy food, that in the stomach, it is taking away the kapha part. It is, and so then digestion becomes a problem. So too much spiced and mixed with red pepper, we have to reduce. I know in some places, because of the heat also, chili is considered very important for digestion, but not excessive. We must reduce it, because it is not good for our consciousness. Also, it's in the mode of passion. Yes, next. Foods due to ignorance, prepared more than 3 hours before being eaten, tasteless, decomposed, and putrid, remnants, other than remnants of God, remnants of other people, and so on. Untouchable things like meat and liquor are really, actually, people enjoy eating all this. And also all these frozen foods and all that. They are, and meat and all is decomposed and putrid. So that is enjoyed by the mode of people in the mode of ignorance. Yes, and next. So what's the life lesson? We are what we eat. Whatever you put into your body, that's what the body will become. So that is plain common sense. So remnants of Supreme Personality of Godhead is beyond the modes. So that is why we offer food to the Lord and then eat. Then what happens, even if it is cooked, say, because we've got all difficult schedules, we work, sometimes, we cook in the morning only and then we come and eat in the evening, so many different things. But if you offer it to Krishna, then it becomes transcendental. And then you can eat, even if it is a little, not more than 3 hours and all, it doesn't get contaminated like that, beyond the modes, Shuddha Sattva. So that is why it's so important to offer it to Krishna and then eat. We are not just vegetarians, we are prasadatarians. We offer everything to Krishna and then have. Yes. Next. So verses 11 to 19, Lord Krishna describes sacrifices and austerities in the modes of nature. Next. Okay, what are the different sacrifices and goodness? Performed according to scriptural injunctions, done as a matter of duty, desiring no reward. Example, going to temple or church simply to offer respect to deities, not for material benefit. So whatever sacrifices, of course, even some people do sacrifices which are not strictly mentioned in the scriptural this thing, but if they are doing it as a matter of duty for pleasing the devatas or whoever in the mode of goodness, but just not for material benefit, that is in the mode of goodness. Yes, because normally people think if you go to the temple, only we go if you have a problem. Otherwise, now I don't have any problem, why should I go? Not that. That is in the mode of passion. Only when you need something, when you have exams, for example, or you need a job, or you want to get married, then you go to temple. Everything is fulfilled, now I don't need to go. That's mode of passion. So mode of passion is for material benefit. Only when you need something and sake of pride, just to show off, maybe you do some big yajnas and all that, so that you become a reputed person. People can also come and give you respects and all that. Give strength, health, happiness, and praying for all this strength, health, happiness, always for some reason. Yajnas for some material benefits or to attain heavenly kingdom. This is in the mode of passion. So, it has become so synonymous that we think that we go worship only for something material benefit. This is the disease. We have to remove that kind of thought and elevate our consciousness to the mode of goodness, that it's a matter of duty. This is, okay, we want their blessings, but we don't just worship only when you need something. Always we do, then it's okay. Okay, sometimes you may need something, you can ask them, but if you're only doing only when you need something, you go to them, that is in the mode of passion. Goodness, always, whether you require something or not. Yes. Next slide. Sacrifice in ignorance, without direction of the scriptures, without distribution of prasadam, without chanting Vedic hymns, without giving remuneration to priests, without faith. So actually these sacrifices, you are supposed to do it like this. But first of all, according to scriptures, and we have to give every time there is a sacrifice, we should distribute prasadam. And there must be this chanting of Vedic hymns and all that. And the priests always should be given something as this thing. Then only the sacrifice is complete. The priest should be happy and blessed. And if you don't really have any faith, simply you do something. Most of the people nowadays, the weddings and other things, they are not even thinking about what is happening here. Why am I even doing it? What are they reciting? They're not concerned. I have to do this. I've been told this. Okay, do it as a social custom. And then they're looking at their watch all the time. Okay, If they tell the priest, fast, fast, finish, quickly, I have to go to work or whatever. So that is without faith, and that is in the mode of ignorance. Yes. Next slide. The best sacrifice. What is that? Chanting Hare Krishna Mahamantra. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. And there's a quotation from Srimad Bhagavatam. Whatever result was obtained in Satya Yuga by meditating on Vishnu, in Treta Yuga by performing sacrifices, and in Dwapara Yuga by serving the Lord's lotus feet, can be obtained in Kali Yuga by simply chanting the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. Srimad Bhagavatam 12.3.52. So you see, we can perform all these sacrifices, which we don't need to do meditation, we don't need to do big yajnas, we don't need to do big elaborate temple worship. We can simply chant the Hare Krishna mantra and we'll get the same results. So make Hare Krishna your lifeline. And you can, and there are no, anytime you want, you can chant. It's not that, for performing a sacrifices, there are so many rules and rituals, and you have to get all those things and then call all the Brahmin priests and at a proper time of the day and everything, you have to sit and concentrate and chant. Do the yajnas. And temple worship is also very, very elaborate kind of temple worship during Dwapara Yuga. That was the Yuga Dharma. But now in this age, this is in Kali Yuga, everything has become simplified, but it is the most powerful also. So this is our only lifeline and the best sacrifice. Yes, next. So different types of austerities. And then there is austerity of body, mind, speech, etc. So austerity of body consists of worship of the Supreme Lord, Brahmanas, spiritual master, and superiors like father and mother. And in being clean, simple, in practicing celibacy means no sex outside marriage and non-violence. So these are things, something, you're taking some trouble, not severe austerities, but worshipping the Supreme Lord every day. If you have to do that, it in a disciplined way, every day you do, not one day I do and then I forget about it, and after some time, whenever I feel like, no. So that is some austerity of the body. And also we have to respect Brahmanas, or ones who know Brahman, who have Brahman knowledge, who are leading a God-centered life. So we should revere them and whatever, serve them, spiritual master, and also superiors like father and mother. Then in being clean, cleanliness, simple, and following this, no sex outside marriage and non-violence. So this is the austerity of body. Yes, next. Austerity of speech. In goodness, we speak only truthful words that are pleasing, beneficial, not agitating. Regularly reciting Vedic literature. So this truth also has to be spoken in a pleasing way. We have to speak the truth. We don't try just to be pleasing. We don't try to tell lies. That is not correct. That is the austerity of speech, that you never tell lies. Always the truth. But at the same time, we should not say it in such a way that it will be agitating and disturbing to others. Or, so we say it in a very nice way so that, and then it's also beneficial for them. And regularly reciting Vedic literature, the Vedas, and in passion is, the speech is manipulative, or you gossip as per their selfish needs. That's how you speak. And in ignorance, lying, agitating words, harming people, saying something that will really make them feel bad. So before speaking, we have to apply these three filters. What is that? Is it true? What I'm saying, is it true or untruth? Is it pleasing? And is it beneficial? Is there some use in which I'm speaking, or simply for the sake of speaking? Something, some gossip. We love to gossip, and that's completely in the mode of passion. And so we are running down so many people like this, and we enjoy that. On the other hand, in mode of goodness, we only say things which will be beneficial. Okay, even if you want to discuss somebody did something and what, that's not right, then you should discuss it. You should think that if by discussing this, am I benefiting this other person, or am I going to benefit the person who has committed that mistake? Am I discussing so that we can help this person? Is there some use from it? Otherwise, simply we should not, the speech. That's why self-control in our speech. That is austerity of speech. Yes. Next. Austerity of the mind. Satisfaction. Otherwise, we are always, if we are always desiring something more, we'll never be satisfied. So we have to control the mind and tell the mind to be satisfied with whatever we have. I mean, whatever life has given us, or whatever Krishna has given us, to be satisfied. Simplicity, not be complicated, but talk. If we have too many, ideas of our own, in the sense, too many ideas for sense gratification, we can't be simple, because we have to plan all the time, and we are all the time looking at how to extract things from people, or like that. But if you're a simple person, then simplicity means you can be honest and straight from the heart. Gravity. So we must have depth and be grave, and not just superficial and talking nonsense. Self-controlled. Purification of one's existence. So all this, mind in goodness is satisfied and content. Mind in passion, dissatisfied, always anxious, because it's always desiring some fruit or the other, and then is worried whether it will happen or not, and so on. Mind in ignorance, bewildered and illusioned. So, they are very disturbed, and they don't know, what's happening. They become very, or moroseness, or illusioned about not having correct understanding. So all this in the mode of ignorance. Engaging the mind in Krishna is the easiest, blissful and sublime experience. It is natural state of samadhi and the most attractive. So this is what we are training our mind to think more about Krishna by chanting and reading about Bhagavad. That's why morning, if you do this, first thing you do in the morning is you're chanting and all that, and then you also do some worship, and you read the Bhagavad Gita and Bhagavatam. Then what happens? Your mind is automatically controlled. It is in the higher mode of goodness. Otherwise, the lower modes will exercise their influence over us. We get irritated, or we fight with people, or we are upset about things. We're always, the mind goes towards negative things, right? And so in this way, this thing. Whereas, okay, what are the austerities of the balance, calmness, determination, confidence, willpower, self-control? So if you are self-controlled, we'll have all this. So that's the austerity of the mind. And that is why chanting Hare Krishna helps us to control the mind and bring it to the mode of goodness. Yes, next. Austerity in goodness, performed with transcendental faith, not expecting material benefits, engaged only for the sake of the Supreme. Yes. Not expecting material benefits. That's very important. Anyway, see, if you have a good relationship with the Lord, everything good will happen. But every time you go in front of the Lord only with your shopping list, that is not correct. We just have faith that the Lord will take care, and we want to develop do it more as a duty to satisfy the Lord. Okay, next. Austerity and passion performed out of pride for gaining respect, honor, and worship, selfish motives. Results are neither stable or permanent. So, as you say, you have sometimes they do yajnas, or they want people to come and worship them and glorify them. They take honor, all these things. So that's in the mode of passion. And the results are it can go on for some time, but it's whatever, you may get some results, but it's not permanent. Temporary things. Yes, next. Austerity and ignorance performed out of foolishness, self-torture. We know some people do very severe kind of torture on their bodies and also to destroy or injure others. The worship, the black magic they do on others. Example, demons like Hiranyakashipu. He did severe austerities, and what was the reason? He wanted power to kill all the devatas and himself become the supreme ruler of this universe. Self-torture to threaten others or torturing others to get what I want are both detrimental to being good human beings, right? Either sometimes, this is another kind of austerity which is condemned, which is not given in the scriptures, but you just want to, blackmail people. If you don't do what I want, I'm going to fast unto death. Or I will do something severe, I'll commit suicide. So just to threaten others and get your way, that is not at all recommended in the scriptures. Body is supposed to be a temple. It is a temple because you have Supreme Personality of Godhead staying in the heart, and our Atma is also here to worship the Lord. And so the body is a temple. We have to treat it with great, consider it as a one of great dignity, and not what people think is this body is my own and I can do whatever I want. It doesn't belong to us. Okay, it's been given by Krishna for us, but we should know that anyway, it also, the ultimate owner of this body is the Paramatma, and he's also very disturbed if we just do all kinds of self-torture to threaten others or torturing. So that austerity is in ignorance. Yes, next slide. So then we come to the last verses 20 to 28. Krishna describes charity in the modes with their differing results. All activities are contaminated by the modes, and those defects are offset by acting in Krishna's service and chanting Om Tat Sat. Actually, all our activities should be aimed and pleasing the Supreme Lord. When sacrifice, penance, and austerity are performed without faith in the Supreme, they are useless both in this life and the next. Okay, next. Three types of charity. Done out of duty without any expectations, at a proper time and place, and to worthy persons, those engaged in spiritual activities. Because why do we want to give charity? So that, not so that, my income tax, okay, I will get ATG or some, some benefit in that, or we give charity because whatever, we'll see the other reasons. But charity and goodness should be for so that we get spiritual benefit, not even for so that I'll get material benefits by this. I mean, I'll get the blessings so that I'll become, even I give a little, but Krishna will give me 10 times more, which is also given in the scriptures, that just to entice people who are in a mode of passion, do this so that you'll get more than a little bit of material charity, and then you get more than this thing. But no, here it is simply done out of duty, without any expectations, proper time and place, to worthy persons, those engaged in spiritual activities, with a lot of respect, right? We don't throw things like that. So when you're giving to worthy people, then you actually give it with a lot of respect and you thank them for accepting it. Okay, next. Charity in passion, desire for fruitive results in a grudging mood. Even the same charity, if you're thinking that, okay, now I've given this, I hope I get some material benefits for that, then that is in a mode of passion, or you want people to think that how great you are, you have donated, you want everyone to know about it. I was listening to a lecture in which somebody was mentioning, there was one devotee who was, constantly, there was a class going on, and he was constantly going and switching off the fan. Every 5-10 minutes, he would go switch off the fan. And then devotees would feel very hot. Oh, put on the fan. Again, he'll put it on like this. So they asked him, what are you doing? So he said, see, I have donated this fan for this temple. How will, and my name is there on the fan. Suppose it's always running. How will you all read what is there? So this kind of, you want everyone to know that you've donated and so on. Or, sometimes we will yeah. So that is, or some superior tells us to donate, so we do, but with a grudging mood. Oh, why did I give all this? So that is in the mode of passion. When you're giving, you should give it with full heart and to worthy people with great respect. Yes, next. Charity in ignorance at an impure place, at an improper time, to unworthy persons without proper attention and respect. So, like, suppose you want to go, okay, let me go today to the bar and give all of them a treat. Today, free. All of you buy whatever liquor, or one bottle free for all of you, or whatever, something like that. That is charity in ignorance for unworthy persons, and without proper attention and respect. So that is something. What are can you think of unworthy and impure? Um, Basically, people doing some sinful activities, just enjoying themselves, and you just go and give a treat and all that. That is in ignorance. Okay. But also without, you're really not in the mode of goodness, you're worshipping them and thanking them, not in that way. Okay, best charity for Krishna conscious endeavors. Use all resources to enhance the mission of the Supreme. That's the best charity, because you're pleasing Krishna and you'll get the best results. The Lord is the bestower of all benediction. If someone gives something to the Lord, he is not the loser, he is the gainer by 1,000,000 times. Srila Prabhupada in the Krishna book. So in this photo, we see how painting Krishna blesses the fruit vendor who came with great love. Actually, she was so much attracted by Krishna. Krishna brought some grains of rice in his hand. He saw his mother, that whenever barter system. So whenever anybody came, she would buy things by giving some rice to them. So he also took some rice in his baby hands and he came. And what happened, by the time he reached, most of the rice had fallen off. Just a few grains were left, and she gave it to this lady, this vendor. And she, with great love, she offered all the fruits in her basket to him in return. And then, so after Krishna took it and went inside, then she looked at a basket, and it was filled with all jewels and, costly stones and all this. So that's why Prabhupada said he's a gainer by 1,000,000 times. What you give a little bit with devotion to Krishna, but the result of it is 1,000,000 times. We can't even imagine. Yes. And that is the best charity for the cause of spreading Krishna consciousness, for giving. See, because what we're doing is just giving one-time meal to somebody. Okay, that's a pious activity. For somebody is hungry and you feed them, or maybe you feed them for more days, whatever. But it is temporary, because because of their karma, whatever suffering is due in their lives, you can't do. Even if you want to do, you can't do. And how much can you do? You're not God. You cannot just take care of a person throughout their lives. But if you connect them to Krishna, then you're doing a great service to them, because through that, their Krishna will take care of them, and then their life will be blessed. So all our Krishna conscious activities is simply to give this mercy to others, and enlighten people about their relationship with the Lord, how they can easily access Him by chanting Hare Krishna mantra, by distributing prasadam, by distributing books, and engage and other festivals and Rath Yatras and so many things. So that all this includes a lot of money. You have to rent out so many things and pay for so many of the services. So if you give it to those people who are engaged in the service of the Lord for glorifying the Lord to others and connecting them to Him, that is the best charity. Okay, next. All sacrifices, austerities, and charities performed under the three modes are materially contaminated. So, because they're all done not purely for the sake of pleasing the Supreme Lord. So the Brahmanas chant Om Tat Sat to satisfy the Supreme Lord and make it spiritual. Om indicates one wants to attain the Supreme. Om Namo Narayanaya. Om is always said. It indicates Vishnu. So indicates one wants to attain the Supreme. Tat indicates that purpose. That the purpose is to get free from material entanglement. And Sat performed for the Lord's pleasure, and so eternal. So that is why any work you do, you say Om Tat Sat. Okay. So that way. Anything done without faith in the Supreme, what happens to that? Impermanent, called Asat, useless, both in this life and the next. Gradual progress of elevation. So this, whatever we saw in this chapter, is a gradual progress of elevation. We start doing something in goodness, and then slowly, and then, because you are at least doing something in a mode of goodness, maybe whatever things you're doing, gradual elevation is possible until you meet a pure devotee. So we should avoid gradual elevation. We can grow much faster. How? Here, transcendental literature from pure souls transcend faith under the modes to the spiritual platform. Very quickly, we can connect with the Lord. That is the special mercy of this age. That simply by chanting Hare Krishna mantra, hearing Bhagavad Gita, Bhagavatam, associating with devotees, rendering some service to the Lord, you can come to the spiritual platform quickly. Yes. So anything done without faith in the Lord is useless. So 17.8, this is about the food in the mode of goodness. Ayuhu sattva balarogya sukha priti vivardhana rasyah snigdha stira hridya ahara satvika priyaha. Ayuhu sattva balarogya sukha priti vivardhana rasyaha snigdha stira hridya ahara satvika priyaha. In the mode of good foods dear to those in the mode of goodness increase the duration of life, purify one's existence, and give strength, health, happiness, and satisfaction. Such foods are juicy, fatty, wholesome, and pleasing to the heart. So see all the things that we try to avoid in modern times, modern life. We avoid ghee, we avoid milk, we avoid yogurt, but they are actually give us strength, health, happiness, and satisfaction. So anyway, I want to share with you all the verses that I'd mentioned. So tomorrow I hopefully share. Or anyway, I'll put it in the YouTube so that, yes, next. Summary of this chapter. For those not following the scriptural injunctions and having their own method of worship, The three modes of material nature determine a person's faith, worship, and eating. Lord Krishna describes sacrifices and austerities in the modes of nature. Krishna describes charity in the modes with their differing results. All activities are contaminated by the modes but can be offset by chanting Om Tat Sat. When sacrifice, charity, and penance are done without faith in the Supreme Lord, they are useless both in this life and the next. And we saw the important verse. Okay, next slide. So this is a song on the prayers to the Panchatattva. Okay, so this is written by a great Acharya called Narottam Das Thakur. So we'll see the song as well as we'll see the translation. So this is the quick method of progressing in our spiritual life by especially Panchatattva. Very, very powerful in this age, and you can get connected very quickly. Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Daya karo more Tuma bina ke dayalu Jagat samsare Patita pa. No, we'll go. So the next, no, okay, I'll finish the song and then. Patita pavana hetu tava avatara Mosama patita prabhu na pai beara Aha prabhu nityananda Premananda Sukhi Kripa Balo Kana Koro Ami Bhoro Dukhi Daya Karo Sita Pati Advaita Gosai Daya karo Sitapati Advaita Gosai Tava kripa bale pai Chaitanya nitai Aha swarup sanatana Rupa Raghunatha Bhatta Juga Shri Jiva Prabhu Lokanatha Daya Karo Shri Acharya Prabhu Srinivasa Ramachandra Sangha Maggi Narottamodasa Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Daya karo more. Okay, next slide. We'll see the meaning. My dear Lord Chaitanya, please be merciful to me, because who can be more merciful than your Lordship within these three worlds? Your incarnation is just to reclaim the conditioned fallen souls, but I assure you that you will not find a greater fallen soul than me. Therefore, my claim is first. My dear Lord Nityananda, you're always joyful in spiritual bliss. Since you always appear very happy, I've come to you because I'm most unhappy. If you kindly put your glance over me, then I may also become happy. My dear Advaita Prabhu, husband of Sita, you're so kind. Please be merciful to me. If you're kind to me, naturally Lord Chaitanya and Nityananda will also be kind to me. O Svarup Damodara, personal secretary of Lord Chaitanya, O six Goswamis, O Sri Rupa Goswami, Sri Sanatana Goswami, Sri Raghunatha Bhatta Goswami, Sri Gopal Bhatta Goswami, Sri Jiva Goswami, and Sri Raghunath Das Goswami. O Lokanath Goswami, my beloved spiritual master, Narottam Das also prays for your mercy. O Srinivas Acharya, successor to the 6 Goswamis, please be merciful to me. Narottam Das always desires the company of Ramachandra Chakravarti. So Srinivas Acharya is one of the great Acharyas, and his disciple is Ramachandra Chakravarti, who was a close associate. So the, Ramachandra Kaviraj. So he is asking, so the love for devotees is even, I mean, very, very important. There, even devotees develop. Oh, you can't hear? Okay. Devotee association is so wonderful that Narottam Das Thakur is begging for the association of Ramachandra Chakravarti. So this is a very beautiful song because it is begging for the mercy of the Panchatattva, and by their mercy we can quickly make advancement in this age. Okay, next. Yeah. So that is, come to the, so what questions? How is being courageous linked to non-vegetarian food? When did I say courageous linked to? Can you please explain? When did I say that you have to be courageous?
Not you, Mataji. This is something which I've heard online. There was some spiritual guru. He was saying that we are Brahmanas. We must be. I mean, those who are Brahmanas, they do not eat non-vegetarian. But those who are a general public can have non-vegetarian food. And he also says that Ramakrishna also, even Ramachandra and also Krishna had non-vegetarian food. It's not an ISKCON devotee. This is a general spiritual guru who is in Telugu. I don't want to name him, but his session was saying that being a vegetarian is a Brahman's role. It is not a role of you don't stop eating non-vegetarian. Do what you're doing and be courageous. That's what he says. He's taking the context of Obama able to kill Osama bin Laden in Pakistan, and Indian leaders couldn't actually have the courage to do that. And he's saying that he's taking that as an example to explain us that eat non-vegetarian, do what you're doing, and let Brahmanas not eat non-vegetarian. That's what his argument and that's what his explanation was. And he made a funny video out of it, but it actually is most of the followers of him are influenced by it. So that's why I thought of bringing this topic here, because you could explain it in a better way.
See, the thing is, whatever statements you make must be backed up by scriptures. Where does it ever say that Rama and Krishna and all ate non-vegetarian? Where does it say? How can Krishna ever condone this thing when he is saying in the scriptures that these are the things in the mode of goodness and all that? And he says that patram pushpam phalam toyam. If you offer me with love and devotion, leaf, fruit, flower, and water, all vegetable kingdom, then I will accept. He never says if you give me meat and eggs and fish and all that, I'll accept. Never. We never hear. And Lord Ramachandra also was an ideal Maryada Purushottam. How will he do all this? Maybe as a Kshatriya, he might have gone to the forest to practice the Kshatriyas are allowed some killing of animals because they have to, practice fighting. When there is a peacetime, then you have to, so because you have to, for shooting and all, I mean, arrows. So maybe he did that as a Kshatriya, but he never ever hear that he had meat or anything non-vegetarian. And it is, between the Devas and the Asuras also. So Asuras eat, all meat and everything. And physically, yes, compared to the Devas, they have more brute strength. But, Devas, they are always protected by Vishnu. And so their powers are more sublime. And but ultimately, always between the Devas and the Asuras, the Devas are always victorious. So it's not brute strength which determines your victory. And that way, I mean, we have done all the surgical strikes and all that. What is he saying? We are also doing. I mean, and we have fought whatever wars we have fought, except the one in 1962 where we lost to because of lack of preparation. Otherwise, we've always won the wars.
True, Mataji. I mean, I'm not convinced with his argument. I can actually answer the person I know about this, but I thought if you answer it, you will have a better answer than what I have. So that's why I've raised this question here. And one more thing, does this mean that do the soldiers are so if a soldier is a devotee, is he allowed to have non-vegetarian? I mean, can he leave, or I mean, just out of curiosity, I'm asking, can he still maintain his?
Actually, yeah, Kshatriyas are allowed, but it's not required. That's what.
Okay.
It is true that Brahmanas are not allowed. Kshatriyas, to some extent, they are allowed to take meat, but it's not required. It's not necessary that Kshatriyas have to eat, otherwise they won't have strength. Because we know how elephants, they are huge and they are pure vegetarian. Where are they getting the strength from? And we have big wrestlers and all that, like Dara Singh and all that. He was a vegetarian. So it doesn't mean, and because all the nutrition required for growing the body is there in vegetarian food. You have animal fat, you require, have all the milk products, and then all the protein. They are thinking that meat will give you a lot of protein, but that whatever the protein that we get from animal things, I mean meat, is excessive. Most of it is just goes as excreted from the body. You don't require that much protein, and in fact creates diseases. Too much protein. Whereas vegetarian food has got a balance of all the proteins, the dals and nuts and all those things. You don't require animal protein at all. And so in this way, vegetarian food is very, very healthy. And meat eating, in fact, is causing all kinds of diseases, isn't it? Heart problems and this thing. I mean, so many even strokes and all are happening because of eating this meat. Is very, very rich, and it lines the arteries with all the, the fat content. It's not, in fact, it produces more problems, and the toxins which are there in all with the large intestine and all that, because it takes a long time to be digested and thrown out, and in meantime, because it is stale stuff, it is dead this thing body which is there, and it's producing all kinds of toxins, and that is why people get cancer and all that. So it is very, very detrimental, in fact. And why? It is simply a kind of, I don't know, mental fixation, that's all. Vegetarian, all meat tastes more or less the same. It is just the flesh. Whereas you see all vegetables, each vegetable is unique in its taste. And the moon is supplying all the juice for the vegetables, to make it tasty. So where is the need? When nature is providing us with varieties of food, why should we kill? And most horrible thing is you're causing pain to to those living entities. Why should you live at the cost of others' pain? So much distress you're causing. That is the worst thing. And because of that, you'll have very bad karma. And in next life, anything you take, every action has an equal and opposite reaction. So you do this, you will get reaction in your next life.
And most of the speakers which I hear online, which I get through WhatsApp, they say that being unsatisfied will motivate you to achieve higher goals. I find it very irrelevant, but I don't know how do we actually answer such a question if somebody asks me, if I'm in a receiving state of that question.
What is the purpose of any activity? It is so that we'll be happy, isn't it? You want to work hard, you want to achieve everything. Ultimately, you want to be happy. But if you simply motivated to do more and more and more without any happiness or peace of mind or any kind of even time to enjoy yourself or be peaceful with your, even or live a balanced life, and it becomes a lopsided life simply to just earn more and more money, more and more, what is that? Then there is no happiness left. So how can we have to see ultimately what is the goal of all your work, not simply to create wealth, isn't it?
Yes, Mataji. Yeah, I got that, Mataji. Thank you.